Class, welcome to Unit 4 in the class, and this chapter focuses on environmental scanning, meaning how do we look at our environment as leaders or members of an organization. Now, this can include internal and external environmental situations. So, for example, if we were to look at how do we develop a strategic plan, remember we look at internal factors and external factors, and some people might use a SWOT assessment or various factors or paradigms in order to do this. So if we were to look at an environment, we may have to remind people, hey, it's great to look out in the world because the world is a big place and it's a lot of unknown factors or developing trends, and we need to be aware of these things, but also what's happening inside the company or organization itself. So environmental scanning or screening can work both ways, internal and external. So when we sit there and think about how do we develop strategic planning, let's look at what's around us, and that's one way to start. So we look at different groups, and we might have a planning committee or a strategic vision committee. It doesn't really matter what the name of the group is. It's that they actually plan things, and they have to use these screenings in order to get a good assessment for the company, so they get a good plan in the future. So the leadership has a strong sense of what's going on and where they should go. Remember, there's limited resources, limited money, people, resources, things of that nature. So that's why this is important. How do we best use bang for the buck, return on the dollar, so to speak, our return of investment? So if we were to look out, we say, well, what type of team do we want? Do we want one that's more homogeneous, meaning more similar, singular, or do you want one heterogeneous, which is more broad or diverse? And each have their advantages, pros and cons. We typically are taught diversity is the best thing, and that can be very true, and in a lot of situations it is. There are times when things can be very singular and they can be more effective, and that's other cases, and we tend to not talk about those, but there are many examples of how that could work. For example, in the United States military, we do have diversity, but at the same time, there's a very singular drive, focus, and mindset, and that can be very effective. And I would argue that that's why the American Armed Forces is the greatest in the world. There's a lot of innovation, there's a lot of flexibility, but there's a singular mindset in many ways. Having said that, we could also look at business. We can say, well, the Japanese model, which we talk about Kaizens and process improvement, the Toyota way is a great book by Leiker. All these things roll up into a very singular group. They know exactly what they want to do. There's not much diversity. They're very innovative and very creative and flexible, especially in the manufacturing process of like Toyota and Honda and other Japanese firms. But that doesn't mean that they're heterogeneous, okay? So then we can say, well, do we know any groups that are more hetero, like Amazon.com has a very diverse staff, and you can see how successful they are. So what I would suggest to you is really take an idea about what type of team sets up, because that will reflect your culture in your organization or company, and it will also project what they see, because they have bias, prejudice, and preconceived notions and experience, and that filters in information in. So this is a very important step in setting up an environmental screening team, both internal and external. That's just a quick start to the unit, but feel free to explore these things and reach out to your professor in the course. Thank you.